See, I find it's very like Loki sitting here and she gave her the she sits up here. Why don't you set up? Do you need a table? Why don't you set up here and we'll have Dennis sit up? Are you okay back
So they've changed the school.
I don't know what it is.
That's true.
I will be not knowing.
I didn't see that.
I was working on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, that's okay. I just was like, I didn't want to bother you.
Why don't you let me know because I can get back to
Oh, thank you for putting it on.
It's 2 minutes and I'm working hard.
Yeah.
So where would you like to sit?
I think that's the mail on tacky, so thank you for defending it.
Like here?
Oh, I know, there's 12 children.
Oh, that's fine. I got it. No, I got it. Or do you want to be in the back?
No, I won't be able to see it.
Okay, right here.
And I can
I was moving as fast as I could. No, I'm getting ready for you guys.
Aye. I'm going to sit in front of you. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you. Oh, nice to meet you, Joe. Good, how are you? Good to see you. There's a number of things we get to before we get to your other, but then we have to do that.
Can't see it.
Yeah, don't have both screens also.
Okay. Nice shoes. Thank you, Cameron.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for attending the February 5th, 2020-24 City Council meeting. Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Mr. King,
Here.
Mrs. Sacks. Here. Mr. Cooney,
Here.
Mrs. Wise,
Here.
Mr. Rock,
Here.
Ms. Marshall. Here. Ms. Weiser. Here.
Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will now proceed with the reading and disposal of the journal. We have minutes from the last council meeting. Is there a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Ms. Marshall,
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Thank you. The next agenda item are additions and removals from the agenda and referrals to the committee. We just had a safety committee meeting where we will there were referrals of 3 additional items to the agenda. I will make a motion one at a time to add, they will be G, H, and I. So the first one will be for letter G. It will be authorization to renew 2024 UHPD Lexipol subscription services in the total amount of $17,026.10. Is there a motion? So moved. Thank you, Mrs. Sacks. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. King. Are there any comments? Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Ms. Marshall. Aye. Ms. Weiser.
Okay, the next item will now be letter H. Authorization to add to the agenda, authorization to renew the 2024 UHPD TAC computer software services in the total amount of $18,645.42. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any comments? Okay, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Ms. Marshall.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
And the third item to add is, it will be now letter I, Lexipol subscription renewal service for the fire department. Amounts will be the fire chief has a little. $10,773.54. An amount of $10,773.54. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Ms. Marshall.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Thank you. Are there any other additions or removals from the agenda? Yeah, Mr. Rock?
Vice Mayor, is there any thought on referring the budget to committee, or do you want to discuss it here first and then refer it to committee? Right, item letter F, establishing the permanent appropriations. I know eventually we have to go through it in committee. Do you want to do it now, or would you like to have overview, 30,000 foot overview today?
My thought was just to table it, but Mayor?
Yeah, I was just, Dennis was going to give us a very brief, as you said, 30,000 foot overview on first reading, but the idea that the substance of it would happen at the finance committee. So I would suggest we have it, but we'll keep it brief.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Great. Anything else? Okay, are there any comments from the audience? If so, thank you. If you could please state your name and address, and the comments are limited to 5 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Marilyn Singer. I am University Heights Observer for the League of Women Voters, and I live at 2595.
Could you speak in the, use the microphone?
Oh, sorry. And this is on behalf of the League of Women Voters that I'm making this statement. On President's Day, February 19th, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Cleveland Heights, University Heights chapter of the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland, in partnership with Heights Libraries, they will present the PBS video, A Citizen's Guide to Preserving Democracy, meeting rooms A and B at the main library, 2345 D Road, Cleveland Heights. The video presents an interview discussion between politician and author Richard Haas, president of the Council on Foreign Relations, and PBS correspondent Hari Srinivasan. Their discussion is illustrated by examples of positive actions of the PBS Civility Project that present habits of citizens. Viewing small group discussions with other attendees. United States. The program is free and open to the public. Parking is free at the main library and no reservations are required.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Mike Rhodes is 2592 University Boulevard. I'm here to speak about the proposed drive-through that we're talking about tonight, including here in the city. I just wanted to remind council of some of the things we promised on the campaign trail, some of the things going on. City council to pick reference. The site plan is clearly not. Formal revenue for the city than here tonight. From a tax revenue standpoint, the drive-through is probably the worst possible land use in our fairly small and highly developed city. I can't think of basically everything from a revenue standpoint, and certainly from a pedestrian standpoint as well. We've got it on a master plan in our review, zoning review that we're doing, that we're trying to move the city in a more pedestrian-friendly, modern. Not even people here. The corporation that takes the city's money out of the city and drive off leaving only pollution and trash. So I'm just asking everyone to please consider those factors when we go to a vote tonight. Please do what's right for the city.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the audience?
So my name is Judy Schoenfeld, and I live on Miramar in South Euclid. I'm here because we will be the folks most impacted by Chick-fil-A. With the garbage, the traffic, they will have 200 cars an hour. We have 200 cars an hour at other Chick-fil-A's in the area, and the air toxicity, which is the smell of chicken going all over the place. We already have increased traffic with University Heights school buses as well as increased car traffic because of congestion at the intersection of Cedar and Warrensville. And they cut down our streets, mostly Miramar, and the side streets, which is it's a neighborhood street. It's not meant to carry any traffic. It's only 2 lanes. It's a side street, not a main drag, and cannot handle any more traffic, especially from Chick-fil-A. So I collected this amount of garbage Sunday when I walked from my house on Miramar to Burger King. I walked both sides of the street, and this is just stuff that is from fast food. I didn't pick up any beer cans, liquor bottles, or other junk that's on the street. This is what I picked up, okay? South Euclid Council is implementing a moratorium on drive-through restaurants and dollar stores in 2 areas of the city. One is Mayfield. The reason they're doing it because there's far less car traffic, thus making our city more walkable for pedestrians. 31 restaurants from Green Road to Fenwick. 7 of them have drive-throughs. Almost all of those have. I think this is overkill. The mayor, who is on the board of NOAC. NOAC is the Northeast Ohio Planning and Traffic Solutions, which, by the way, should be, and is it available to the public if there is one? So I realized that what he was talking about was a bigger project, but it has the same ramifications. And this is the quote from your mayor. The overdevelopment of one city should not be to the detriment of its neighbor. We have processes and they were not followed here. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and your planning commission, who gave special permits and waived all variances and permits to approve this project without ever reading the specs. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the audience?
Good evening. My name is Reginald Highland. I live north of Cedar here on Miramar, across the street from Miss Judy here. I know there's going to be a problem once Chick-fil-A comes in because I live at the second stop sign, and by then, when people finish with their food, it's on my lawn. I know the city of University Heights residents are going to be okay with it because you're going to have a no right turn sign on Miramar. That means all the traffic that's going north is going to go straight down Miramar. We're not going to go up Cedar to red lights, and we're going to get more traffic, more garbage. So I would just hope that you all consider your neighbors to the north here. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Roy Schoenfeld. I'm married to Judy. The last speaker is my neighbor. Okay. So I live in South Euclid, and to reiterate some of the things, it has been recorded that special permits and variances received by, Chick-fil-A have been approved by the mayor. Do we know why those were approved? We should, if you're looking for transparency for your community, you should let us know why those things were approved, because that's not normal. As Judy has said, this area has already been, it's got 31 restaurants with all these drive-throughs, and South Euclid's trying to get a handle on it. I would hope University Heights would get a handle on it. Also, has there ever been a traffic study in this area? And if it is, can we see it? Again, talking about transparency, can we see the traffic study, or the public can see the traffic study? And will it include what is happening with the new development on the corner there? The university, they're tearing it down, and there's rumors that they're going to be building lots of new things with lots of traffic. So is that going to include that? And also, I would like to ask the mayor and the city council, has there ever been any discussions with Chick-fil-A about tax abatements, set-offs, etc.? We'd like to know, again, the transparency issue. Thank you.
A little short. My name is Alex Ogilvie. I live on Faversham in University Heights, and just want to express my opposition to the Chick-fil-A. I support transit and pedestrian-friendly developments, and think that we too should as a city, especially for a project that doesn't conform to the current zoning code. Should council decide to approve the project, I would suggest perhaps a condition being placed on the development, on the owners, that they are responsible for picking up trash within some certain number of feet of the project. As our neighbor demonstrated this use and other fast food and drive-through establishments, there's quite a lot of trash that gets scattered throughout our communities. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the audience? Okay, thank you. We now have reports and communications from the mayor and taking of action there. Yes?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking all the citizens from both University Heights and South Euclid who are here, who have addressed the city regarding the proposed Chick-fil-A. I appreciate anyone who takes the time to come before the city to express their views and let me know their positions on the issues that we all face. Some of the things I will go over now are things I've mentioned before in one context or another, but I think are worth going over once more briefly. The proposed site for the Chick-fil-A is 14100 Cedar Road, which is zoned U9 and also known as the Cedar Center District. Restaurant use is expressly permitted in the Cedar Center U9 district. If this proposed restaurant did not have a drive-through or a patio, no special use permit or any of the variances before council tonight would be necessary. When we take up this item this evening, the law director will go over the standard under Ordinance 1274 for a special use permit and what standards the council should be applying in considering the application, just as Planning Commission did when it declined to reject the application and then recommended approval. To be clear, this was a Planning Commission approval, not the mayor on his own. Namely, under 1274, that the applicant show, quote, by clear and convincing evidence that the special use will not impair surrounding property values and uses, vehicular parking and pedestrian or traffic conditions, lighting glare at night, noise pollution to others, or other applicable criteria in the planning and zoning code, and will not be otherwise contrary to the public health, safety, and welfare. I hope I didn't just steal Mr. McConville's line. The test for the issuance of a special use permit or for whatever a new applicant or whether a new applicant may come to our city, build in our city, the test is not whether you or I personally would patronize the proposed establishment. Later tonight, we will consider and likely approve a special use permit for a daycare center, even though none of us up here have children of age to use it. Similarly, when we have considered and approved special use permits for houses of assembly, whether or not we might join them to worship and pray is immaterial to the application. Personally, I avoid eating in chain restaurants, favoring locally owned, family-owned establishments. I prefer to get my chicken sandwiches at the Chicken Range in Sauce the City, even today with Popeyes less than a mile up Warrensville Center Road, and possibly tomorrow with Chick-fil-A also in the neighborhood. But where I might choose to eat is immaterial to this application. But as an elected official in the city, I do appreciate any applicant's willingness to invest in our city, bring new construction, bring jobs, bring tax revenue, especially to an underutilized and obsolete site. That all said, I did not seek this applicant. They chose and sought us. Chick-fil-A's interest in our city is understandable. We have a strong consumer base and we are densely populated. And while we as a city are seeking to expand upon our city's walkability when it comes to development generally, the high-density development along Cedar Road and at Cedar Center historically has been automobile-centric. A drive-through restaurant that at peak would handle 200 cars an hour would be at home on Cedar Road in a way that it may not be on nearly any other street in our city. Over 2 decades ago, University Square was developed to have 24 or more successful businesses. Today, University Square is Target, Macy's, Verizon, and a couple of banks. One successful restaurant is not going to overburden the U9 district. Also, the planned redevelopment of University Square would be mixed use, including over 200 apartment units, which would have less vehicular traffic than retail in that same space. The site was built to handle far more traffic than it currently does. Currently, there is a bank drive-through and a largely unoccupied office building on the site at 14100 Cedar Road. The real estate market for office space is soft all over, and University Heights is no exception. The proposed development would replace a rundown and obsolete office building. I walked through that building again just today. Most of the office suites are vacant. There are a handful of businesses. Most keep odd hours. I've lived here long enough to remember this building at its peak. That is not the condition of the building or the tenancy present there today. Hearing comments tonight, I am reminded back in 2008 when Waterway was interested in University Heights. They proposed not just a car wash and convenience store, but a regional training center and offices. At urging of residents, the city ultimately rejected the zoning changes that would have permitted that applicant to build. And Waterway instead built in Pepper Pike on Lander Circle. Here in University Heights on that site that was Waterway's first choice, we instead got a McDonald's. At the time the city rejected Waterway, the choice was not Waterway or McDonald's. It was Waterway or the languishing status quo, which really meant Waterway and the unknown, which became McDonald's. Similarly, today, we do not know what we might get instead if we do not approve this project. For those of us who remember Monty Hall, we do not know tonight what is behind door number 2, and we will not see that tonight, regardless of how the vote goes. But differently, zoning changes are not needed for this applicant. Simply variances connected to the 1274 special permit. And there is precedent in place in the U9 for an application like the one before us tonight. 10 years ago, the city approved another drive-through restaurant with a patio in the Cedar Center U9 district. That being the Dunkin' Donuts located at 13880 Cedar Road. In 2014, developers tore down an old building that once contained Sills Insurance, Park Jewelers, classic memorial monuments, and a lot of vacant office space. Then, as now, it was redevelopment that took obsolete and underused space and made it productive. The few businesses that were present there relocated. Sills Insurance is still here in University Heights, just west of the library. Arc Jewelers and Classic Memorials relocated to the South Euclid side of Cedar and Warrensville. Again, the U9 is zoned for restaurant use. Chicken Range, Zena, Primo's, Bibby Bob, Giorgio's, The Sauce, Boston Market, Applebee's, all current and recent restaurants in the U9. And Dunkin' with its drive-thru. I urge the City Council to consider the law director's direction on the legal standards applicable under 1274 for the special use permit, as he will set forth when we get to that item on the agenda. I do have one other item. We do not have on tonight's agenda an engineering candidate. The rejection of our engineering candidate last month has had a ripple effect on projects here in the city. I am endeavoring to mitigate and minimize that effect. However, ODOT has postponed our traffic signal project until fiscal year 2025, specifically citing the lack of an engineer. NOACA has expressed concern in the status and timing of numerous projects without an engineer, and we'll be meeting with them in early March. Hopefully by then we will have an engineer to bring to that meeting to keep those projects on track. Though we do not today have a city engineer, we are proposing tonight, very briefly, we'll get into greater detail of the Finance Committee, propose a budget that uses GPD's last numbers for the road program. Though those numbers were provided knowing that they would not be the one needing to fulfill them, and will require revision by whomever ultimately comes in the city engineer. There are other projects that are delayed besides these, such as the continued replacement of the Silsbee Road water main, the projected design costs for which exceed my spending authority. I am in talks with 2 engineering firms presently. I hope to have one to nominate and bring back later this month for confirmation. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Okay, the next item on the agenda are reports and communications from City Council and the taking of their action. They're on. And a couple things. One is in light of the budget item on the agenda, there was a council doodle poll that went around today. I hope within the next 2 weeks that there will be a finance and lay finance advisory committee meeting to review the budget, and we will at least need 1, possibly 2 meetings before we can approve this. It will be a quick turnaround, unfortunately, because of the late timing of this. I also am disappointed that the engineer is not on the agenda tonight. I was hoping that this would be a priority. Projects should not have been canceled or postponed because we do not have an engineer for 4 weeks. That is unacceptable. Are there any other questions? Oh, the other comment that I did want to make is there is a council of the whole meeting tomorrow. We have resumes for a new law director that we will be discussing, and we will be scheduling interviews within the next few weeks as well. Are there any other items that any council member would like to discuss? Okay, we will now go on to reports and communications from the directors of the Department of Finance, Law, Public Safety, Public Service. Department of Finance, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just 2 quick things. One, we are in the process of closing the month of January, so we'll get those numbers out to everybody as soon as we have final reconciled all the accounts. And number 2, it's here sooner than you know it, but we're going to start doing the audit this month as well in the next couple of weeks. That will be initiated. And likewise, there's a CIC meeting coming up, and that's also to approve the auditor for the CIC. So they're the same company that does both, but we'll be working on ours starting in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you. Director of Law?
No report this evening.
Thank you. We'll now turn to Public Safety with the Police Chief.
Vice Mayor, no report.
Thank you, Chief Smathers. Fire?
No report this evening.
Thank you. Service, Mr. Bennington?
No report thank you.
Building Department?
No report tonight, Vice Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Housing and Community Development?
I don't care. Unless you.
Good evening. Just to update council on the status of the grant. If you guys weren't aware, we did get the grant that was put through NOACA for the $395,000 passed committee. NOACA will take it to a vote on March 8th. And this is the grant that will begin to reimagine and redo Taylor Road. Other than that, I have no report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Engelbaum? Okay. Mayor, are there any engineer?
Brian.
Sorry.
I just want to thank Mr. Engelbrecht for his work on that project. It's going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, is there anything with the engineer?
Nothing beyond what I already reported in my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Communications?
Last night, no report this evening.
And economic development?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to announce that Clean Eating 2, after 3 years of renovation, has finally opened. That's a new restaurant that's located here in the city at 2263 Warrensville Center Road. That's in the over where Adams Barber Shop and that whole shopping center, the Silsby Center is what it's known as. They specialize in sandwiches, salads, rice bowls, and smoothies, and they officially opened last week. They did not have a grand opening or anything, they just opened, but they are officially finally opened. And that's my report to you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
You're afraid not to record anymore, right?
Hey, I'm recording everybody.
Okay, we will now go on to the agenda. Agenda letter A is motion to confirm the appointment of Alex Ogilvie to the University Heights Architectural Review Board for a term of 3 years, effective February 1st, 2024. Mayor, would you like to say something about this?
Sure, I'll keep it brief. I thought I would have an opportunity to introduce Alex Ogilvie to all of you, but she spoke during public forum, so you've already met her, and some of you have already met her in other contexts as well. Alex is an architect here in University Heights, chose to make this her home after spending some time, much of her time, professional career in California and Sacramento and in San Francisco and in Oakland. She is not only an experienced architect, but is experienced in community service as well from 2016 to 2022. I would point out as set forth in her resume in the packet. She was on the Planning and Design Commission for the City of Sacramento, California. So she brings a lot of great experience here to University Heights, and if anything, she may be overqualified to be on our ARB. But she is somebody who is newer to the community and is somebody that we very much want to see involved in city government and on boards and commissions. I want to thank Mr. Rock for making the initial introduction with Ms. Ogilvie when they were working together at LDA. I was hesitant at that time to appoint somebody who worked at the same firm as a council person. Whether the conflict was real or perceived has resolved itself as they no longer work at the same firm. And upon learning that, I used that as an opportunity to get back in contact with Ms. Ogilvie. Delighted to be putting her forth for your confirmation to the ARB this evening. I know she's here. I would welcome her to come to the podium and say a few more words on this. Alex, if you'd like. You were there, now you're here. Okay.
Thank you for that very generous introduction. I don't think I have anything else to add except I really love this community. It's been a great move for my life and our cats. Really enjoy the city, and as I said before, I support transit and walkable neighborhoods. As a bicyclist myself and everyday walker, architect, really support the values that this community has demonstrated since we've been here almost 2 years, and serve in whatever capacity I can. And if you have any questions,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Rob?
Thank you. Got to know Alex, Ms. Ogilvie, for a couple of years now. And she's tremendous. She's got a great resume. It's in the packet, so I know you guys had a chance to take a look at it. She's going to do exemplary work here on the board. I'm very excited that she was nominated. I had encouraged her to run last year when there was a vacancy on the board, and but that did not come to fruition. However, I do want to mention that there is still a vacancy on the Architecture Review Board. So the Architecture Review Board is going to have 5 members plus an alternate. So it's still not a fully staffed board. I'm a little confused, though, as to why we eliminated Mr. Couture from the board when there is still not a fully staffed board. The mayor gets to choose the Architecture Review Board members, subject to council approval. I would think when there was a vacancy, we wouldn't just fire people from the board and bring somebody on new. I would think we would fill in the positions that are open first. So I'm a little taken back by that. I want to say a few things just to get on the record, because if I don't, it's going to bother me forever. So Ms. Ogilvy, you and I have talked about this in the past, but I just want to make sure it's on the record. You are not obligated to take a meeting with the mayor at any time. The mayor has called board members to come to a meeting in his office for whatever reason. You are under no obligation to take a meeting. They usually happen when you either vote against something he prefers, or you talk to a council person, which he does not prefer, you get called into the office. You're under no obligation to take that meeting. You do not work for the mayor, he just appoints you and you confirm. There may be a time you get a nasty letter from the mayor. Both Mr. Cato and Mr. Couture just received a letter last week that I got to read. I felt it was threatening in nature and intimidating to get them to change the way they conduct themselves on ARB. It came to my attention that before the last Architecture Review Board meeting, one of the board members' employers was called. And I feel that was in a way to get them to vote a certain way. That board member felt extremely uncomfortable. If your employer is called, you are under no obligation to talk to them or anything. You actually are allowed to discuss the site. So as part of the Architecture Review Board, you are going to look at materials, fenestration, colors, that sort of thing, but also part of your scope is specifically on the site, you can look at vehicular access, pedestrian access, orientation of the building, traffic flow. Those are things that are actually spelled out in the administrative code. So in the last meeting, board members were forbidden from talking about the site. But you actually, under the administrative code, can talk about the site. Just want to talk for a minute about how this behaved. Back in 2022, the mayor he had attempted to remove 2 Architectural Review Board members after they had a disagreement with the facilities assessment. This council ended up expanding the board to 5 people plus an alternate, so that's 6, which we still have not filled that 6th position. In fact, that alternate position has been vacant the entire time Mayor Brennan has been mayor. In 2023, he removed another Architectural Review Board member, no reasons given, and in 2024, he removed another Architectural Review Board, again, no reason given. I assume it's because of their reluctance to pass the Chick-fil-A project in the last meeting. He also removed 2 Planning Commission members right after they voted to table the meeting because they had disagreements over the bus depot, which is right outside those windows there. When they showed their disagreement, they were let go before the following meeting. The applicant never returned and the bus depot got built. He also removed 2 members from the Beautiful Home Commission that he did not agree with. He had attempted to remove a citizen member of the CIC because he did not agree with them, and is now trying to reorganize the governance structure of that. I want to just go back to while Mr. Couture was let go from the Architecture Review Board, when we have a need for an additional person, Ms. Ogilvy can serve alongside the peers on the Architecture Review Board, but I have heard no reason.
Yeah, Ms. Weiser.
I'm sorry, Councilman Rock. We're discussing an appointment to the board. I understand why you want to do what you want to do. But as a point of order, we're moving into an area that isn't on this section.
Sure. So, I'm going in that direction.
I know that, but
Vice Mayor Weiss, I'm in agreement with Council Member Weiser. This is about the appointment. I make a motion.
I still need to move forward. We have a point of order, but I still have the floor.
So there's a point of order.
Yes.
So the point of order.
Let me read it. I'm only hesitant. I don't want to vote no on this because we desperately need an architecture review board to be fully staffed. So I'm not voting no on this. But I do want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not sure how to vote yes when we are removing people from a board and what I perceive as the dismantling of the board, and that has come up before with the trying to eliminate residency requirements.
So we can have that in comments then afterwards. Ms. Weiser?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Alex, I will say I was highly impressed with your resume the first time I read it, which isn't tonight, and it wasn't in the packet. It was the first time your name came up as a potential person to serve on ARB. You are more than qualified. The mayor is right. You are overqualified. You have new ideas that you and I think we need that. I hear Councilman Rock's concern because there has been things that have happened, and I will tell you, your email to the mayor those many months ago proved to me you can stand on your own 2 feet and you don't have to worry. I think you know how to handle yourself professionally. I think you will be an asset to the community. And I would hope that Councilman Rock would put aside his concerns, which are very real, and use that as the basis to vote to approve the nomination to ARB. We can't afford to lose this woman's qualifications. We just can't.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. Mrs. Hicks?
Thank you. And I thank Ms. Ogilvie for reconsidering in spite of what happened before. For the very reasons that Councilman Rocks has been stating, so I will not restate any of that. I have been grappling with the decision on how to vote, because on the one hand, you and Ms. Hume are very qualified and very much needed in our city. But I do want to send a message to the mayor that while I support you strongly on the ARB, I also strongly disapprove of his dismissal and termination methods. So should Ms. Ogilvie and Ms. Hume be appointed to the ARB, I firmly hope they can express their professional opinions without having to face the same fate of those who have been curtly and disrespectfully terminated and dismissed. Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you. I'm not going to go into a full blow-by-blow refutation of what Mr. Rock said, because I want to respect the point of order that I think Councilmember Weiser rightly made. But I do think there are a couple of things that need clarification. First of all, Mr. Coucheray was not fired. His term was up. His term was up. And these are not lifetime terms. Anytime a term is up, you may renew somebody or you may go in another direction. In this instance, we went in another direction. I wanted to give somebody else an opportunity to serve in the ARB. Mr. Coucheray has served with distinction over a long period of time. I celebrate his service to the city and look forward to another opportunity for him to serve at a later date if he is so interested in some other capacity. I reject the idea that Mr. Coucheray was let go because of Chick-fil-A. He, as a member of ARB, he voted in favor of the application. So that would be a strange turnabout if I was somehow punishing him for Chick-fil-A when he voted for it. That said, when it comes to Ms. Ogilvy, and, you know, I don't believe she's anybody's yes person, least of all mine. So I have no problem with strong, thoughtful people being in the various appointed positions here in the city. And if you know, fealty to the mayor was a qualification, Alex wouldn't be the nominee. She's here because she's qualified, she's going to be great at it, and anybody who is always welcome to disagree with me, because that's how, you know, conversations continue and better decisions are made. So I don't fear that one bit. I welcome it. So Alex, I thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity, and I know that your allegiance is to doing the best job possible, not to myself or any member of council. So thank you.
Mr. Rath?
I'd like to add one more thing. So Ms. Ogilvy, just to be consistent with Mr. Brodus, who was appointed a month ago, I believe, just want to let you know when and if you get appointed to this board, you'll get to participate in our zoning committee redo. So right now we're undergoing a comprehensive zoning redo. And so board members from the Architecture Review Board, Planning Commission, and Board of Zoning Appeals have a seat at the table to have a voice of how our zoning should look. So you will be invited to come to all those meetings if you are confirmed. And then there's also the Building and Infrastructure Subcommittee, in which we allow licensed architects, or actually anybody who's interested in architecture or development, engineering, that sort of thing, to have a voice at the table regarding public works projects or buildings. Right now we're going through new municipal facilities, so we're trying to right-size that. So again, you'll have a seat at the table to help us with that, undergo that process.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I will make a motion to appoint Ms. Ogilvy to the Architectural Review Board.
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. King. Are there any comments?
Confirmed.
I'm sorry, confirm your appointment. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser? Aye.
Okay, thank you, and congratulations. Next agenda item is the motion to confirm the reappointment of Lily Hume to the University Heights Architectural Review Board for a term of 3 years effective February 1st, 2024. Mayor, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, Lily was previously appointed to serve a partial term when we reorganized the ARB. She has served well in my estimation and in the estimation of those who have served with her. If anyone has had any issue with her, they've certainly not shared it with me. Again, this is a younger but experienced architect who has cut her teeth in areas outside of Cleveland. I appreciate people who bring in the outside perspective. Much of her work prior to coming to Greater Cleveland was in Philadelphia, and you know, this is somebody who I think brings attributes that are that will help us be the city that we want to be, you know, going forward and in the future. And delighted that Ms. Hewin is willing to serve again and continue with another 3 year, well, with a full 3 year term. I think she's here, and Lily, if you'd like to come up and say a few words, would be. A lot of the folks up here have met you before, but there are some new faces, so everyone, this is Lily Hewin.
I totally didn't expect to speak tonight.
Sorry, I ambushed you there with that.
No, you're fine. I'll be upfront with saying I'm a new mother. So last night I was sleeping on the nursery floor because my baby is sick. So if I'm a little bit scattered right now, I apologize. I'll first say something about one, I'm excited to serve again for a full 3 year term. I'll follow that up by saying that I was I was quite disappointed to hear that Mike Cucciari would not be joining us this year. He brought an immense amount of experience to the ARB, very in-depth insight, not only to the architecture, but also just generally the community. And I think that's something that, you know, in the hustle and bustle of everything happening, can sometimes get lost in the conversation, is that as ARB members, we are residents first, who genuinely care about the community at large and what we can hope to contribute here. So to hopefully move forward without much contention would be great, as our primary focus is just to make this community the best that it can be, architecturally speaking. The second thing I wanted to restate is the importance of having an alternate. So I said I'm a new mom, so when Mayor Brennan called me young, it was very nice. I don't feel very young anymore with a baby. This past summer, I was on maternity leave for 3 months, and then we only had 4 ARB members, and so to meet quorum, we needed 3 people here at all times, which during the summer is a little bit dicey given everyone has their own vacation plans. We have jobs outside of ARB as well, and we have our own personal lives that we need to attend to. As much as I wanted to be at ARB during my maternity leave sometimes, could not make it. And so I was especially appreciative that the 3 other members that were on the board didn't show up, because we did not have a 5th member and we did not have an alternate who could sub in for them. So understanding that there is still an alternate position open, and understanding too that Mike was essentially let go, knowing that there is another position open, it is disconcerting. So I just wanted to also state that. I texted my husband a list of points before I came up here, and I don't think I gave him any context, so he's like, what is she doing right now? I guess I'll go ahead and finish by saying thank you again for having me, and I'm excited to serve again with Alex, welcome, and the 3 other board members. So, and hopefully an alternate this year. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am just so pleased with the integrity of these two residents who are willing to serve on our ARB. I am just very, it's a great package to have professional expertise and commitment to the city as well as integrity. Thank you so much for your comments tonight, and I do hope the mayor will reflect on them. To reinstate Mr. Porter, make the ARB whole.
Are there any other comments? I will make a motion to confirm the reappointment of Lily Hewen to the University's Architectural Review Board for the term of 3 years effective February 1st, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Weiser? Okay, Mrs. Sachs. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sachs?
Aye.
Mr. Cody?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, thank you both. Thank you both. Okay, the next agenda item is a motion to approve the Planning Commission recommendation for the February 1st, 2024 Planning Commission meeting for the following special permits for 1 year to operate a daycare center in a U2 two-family district at 13504 Cedar Road, La Petite Learning Daycare Center, and to allow a canopy in front of the setback line. Is there a representative here?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. And I don't know if Mr. Rock or Mr. McConville would like to say a few words?
Well, just as a preliminary matter, I would note for the record that council is not considering the issue of the canopy. That's an existing structure, pre-existing non-conforming use. There's no variance necessary. You're just considering the issuance of a special use permit.
Okay, thank you.
I
could just give a real quick synopsis of the planning commission meeting that was held for the applicant. This did get approved. Everyone voted yay for that, so this did get approved. We did take the canopy off as the canopy was existing, the drawings were not provided, I didn't feel comfortable reviewing something that I couldn't see, so I asked that that be not considered as part of this packet, which was fine. It's an existing condition, so we're good there. This was a daycare center before, so it had been a vacant building for some time, and now we have an investment into this building, into this community to bring a new daycare center here. The only concern that was brought up, I was speaking with the building commissioner about what use group this falls under. Part of the building is educational and part of it falls under I-4 in the Ohio Building Code, which is for the toddler rooms and the infant rooms. They fall under a different standard just because of the high standard that it holds. And these are humans that cannot take care of themselves. And so one change that may have to be made once the building department conducts its thorough building code review is that there would need to be another means of egress outside the toddler room and outside the infant room. It should not have a monumental change to the site plan, except maybe a sidewalk connecting to the sidewalk. We felt comfortable approving this with the condition, though, that the applicant would have the thorough building code review conducted by the building department so that they can navigate those particular issues regarding the I-4 components.
Thank you. Ms. Meiser?
Since I probably am the only person on council that has an intimate knowledge of the site, because I live right behind you, and I've lived right behind La Petite for 30 years. That use has been there for years.
Ms. Weiser, could I interrupt you for one moment? Before we proceed in taking testimony or evidence from the applicant, if I could just clarify for the record, this is a special use permit under 1274-01B. The legal standard is enunciated in 1274-01D. The mayor did correctly state that standard earlier this evening, but for the benefit of the record and council members, the applicant has a burden by clear and convincing evidence to show that the special use will not impair surrounding property values or uses, vehicular parking and pedestrian or traffic conditions, light and glare at night, noise pollution to others, or other applicable criteria in the planning and zoning code, and will not be otherwise contrary to the public health, safety, and welfare. With that, I would yield the floor.
Thank you, Mr. McConville, because I can honestly say in 30 years, we probably have had marginal complaints, if anything. If you run your business the way La Petite was run previous to this, I think all of those conditions can easily be met. I think the main concern that we have had as residents, and I'm speaking as put on my resident hat, was the fact that building was empty for such an extended period of time. I would say whoever you hired to clean the site has done a tremendous job. I can vouch for that before I even knew that it was. I thought La Petite was just going to reopen. So I think that the people in that area, the neighbors in that area are used to the use. I know from my neighbors, I've never heard anybody complain. I know we have dogs, which is why we put up the board-on-board fence so they can bark at the kids when they're in the playground. But I think overall, I really do not personally see an issue with this at all.
Did you have any comments or they wanted to say to City Council?
I just want to, no, I don't. I'm just looking for, seeking approval to I did, the paperwork, I think I forgot the lady that was sitting, I think, right here at the planning commission. I think it was said that it wasn't going to be a 1 year, Yeah. and it
Yes.
was changed. Okay.
Yes, if I may. Yeah, that was one other change as Mr. McConville and Mr. Rock were going over some differences. Yes, as passed by Planning Commission, we took out the 1-year limitation. Typically with special permits, they're approved indefinitely or until such time as something would terminate the permit, such as closure for an extended period of time or some other issue.
But that's correct as it relates to 1274.
Yes.
But Mayor, I would point out on our agenda is a motion that clearly states special permits for 1 year.
Yes, I would submit it's wrong.
Yeah,
That's not what was passed at Planning Commission.
The motion passed at Planning Commission. I had made the motion and I amended it to remove the 1-year requirement. So,
So there's 2 amendments.
and the motion included, right, the amendment for the subject to building code evaluation, building code review by the code department.
Before we review the site plan, Mr. McConnell, can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
These are just, I know too much about daycares, so I just had a couple of questions. Are you licensed by the ODJFS or the ODE?
So I can't get licensed until I get you all's approval.
Okay, so because they want to see the building and then they're going to do their inspection.
Yes.
And have they given you a time frame?
No, so once I turn. I'm sorry. Once I get some paperwork from you all, what is it? You all, the fire department and the health department.
Mm-hmm.
I give it to them. They told me that once they assign me a worker, it could be up to like 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
So I have to submit that along with the application. You all approve.
Okay, great. And are you having a food program also?
I am.
Okay, so that will be the CAF-CP program?
Yeah, that's why I have to go through. I'm
Board of Health.
Yeah, health department, things like that right now.
Okay, yes, thanks. All right, Mr. McConville?
I don't know if, council has had the opportunity to review the site plan. I would note that it's an existing building. There are no alterations to the site plan. The particular condition that was articulated at the Planning Commission level was that the approval would be subject to plan review for purposes of reviewing whether additional egress is required at ground level with respect to students who are in kindergarten or below. That was the I-4 classification that was mentioned by the city's building commissioner at the meeting. Any questions can be directed to the applicant or to myself or Mr. Rock or the mayor who are the members of the planning commission who are here this evening.
I actually had a couple of questions also. So you have 7 rooms with a possible 8th room in the basement?
Yes.
Okay, and were they all measured to conform to the certifying agency? Because I know they need to be a certain square footage based on the age of the child.
It's 35 square foot per child, so yes.
Okay, so you won't have a problem with that because it was a daycare previously. Like you didn't switch age groups by rooms?
No.
Okay. Were there any other comments from City Council? Well, I'm very excited that it's going to be a daycare again. It's been empty for too long, and I know there's a very big need for daycares in the city. Ms. Weiser?
Move to approve the Planning Commission recommendation from February 1st, 2024 Planning Commission meeting for the following special permits to operate a daycare center in a U2 two-family district of 13504 Cedar Road, La Petite Learning Daycare Center.
Do we have to say as amended?
And I deleted the 1 year.
Right.
No need to amend, but I would suggest that if you're willing, that you add to your motion that it is contingent upon plan approval.
Contingent upon plan approval as stated in the planning commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any comments? Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cody?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, the next agenda item is a motion to approve the Planning Commission recommendation from the October 5th of 2023 Planning Commission meeting regarding the site plan application approval from PEA Group for the construction of a new Chick-fil-A restaurant with drive-through at 14100 Cedar Road, including the approval under University Heights Chapter 1274 for a special use permit for a drive-through and patio as depicted in the site plan application, and the findings that the conditions for which variances sought by the applicant were waived by the commission. And in reflection of discussion had on the recording at Planning Commission, amend the waiver of variances to a granting of variances time limited to the duration of the special use permit. Mr. McConville, when we discuss this, we should go one by one in terms of variances?
Yes, a few things at the outset. This is a special use permit under 1274-01B. The same legal standard that you just heard also applies in this case, and again, for purposes of the record, I'll just read that in. The applicant has a burden by clear and convincing evidence to show that the special use will not impair surrounding property values or uses, vehicular parking and pedestrian and traffic conditions, lighting glare at night, noise pollution to others, or other applicable criteria in the planning and zoning code, and will not be otherwise contrary to public health, safety, and welfare. I note that this is an application for a special use permit that involves a request for variances. At the Planning Commission meeting, there was a concern that was articulated by a member of the Planning Commission that the city would be prevented from ever reconfiguring the site if variances were granted that would run with the land. And as a solution to that issue, in an effort to craft a less burdensome decision on the city, it was suggested that waivers of the variance requirements be approved in lieu of variances, and it was also indicated that the law department would take a look at that issue to determine whether variances run with the land as a matter of law or whether they can be time limited. We did do that research, and we've found case law that supports the idea that variances can be time limited. And so because it's a more conventional approach, we would recommend that if council is inclined to grant the special use permit, that you also grant variances that are temporally limited to run concurrently with the duration of the special use permit, so that if the applicant were to ever leave or abandon the site, the variances would be extinguished as they departed. I can answer more questions about that if you have any. I would also note that because the applicant is seeking variances, this is a quasi-judicial hearing under Chapter 2506 of the Ohio Revised Code. We will ask the applicant and any witnesses that they might bring this evening to be sworn. And if you open the floor up for comment from the public, we'll ask anyone who's commenting publicly to be sworn this evening. With that, what we would typically do is turn the floor over to the applicant, ask them to be sworn, and go ahead and make their presentation to council.
If there's anybody from the applicant that would like to speak, please please approach the podium. You can get sworn in, please.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Anthony J. Coyne. I'm legal counsel to Chick-fil-A on this matter as their land use counsel. Just for the sake of cooperation, I'll be glad to be sworn in, but I'm already sworn in as a member of the bar. I have to testify truthfully. I have to follow the Constitution, the laws of the state of Ohio, and the ordinances of this wonderful city. But I'll be glad to be sworn in if you'd like me to.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. And note for the record, Leslie Cardo is with me. She is an engineer working on the project, and she also consented to being sworn in. So for the record.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will get to that here as we progress. First of all, to the Vice Mayor, on behalf of Chick-fil-A, we're really excited to be here. This project has been under review by just 1 full year, actually. And we have had many meetings. We had some challenges trying to schedule this meeting for a variety of reasons, but because of technology, we're fortunate enough to have our team leader appear by Zoom. Sean Walker is the principal development leader with Chick-fil-A from Atlanta. She is available on Zoom to comment or answer questions. Leslie Accardo is the civil engineer and senior project manager. She is present with me. Heather Simcoe, who's been to several meetings with the E&H architectural firm as the project manager, is also on Zoom. Also, we believe our traffic engineer from Fishback Engineers from Detroit, Michigan is available on Zoom as well. So with that technology introduction, I just want to thank the entire council for your time and hopefully for your fair consideration for this really, we think, exciting project here in University Heights. And I know that this project is probably the largest single investment in University Heights in a while. It's going to involve significant restoration of a site which currently is, as you know, a medical office building. It will create 60 to 80 jobs. It's all new construction. And so we're excited to bring this. Now, as some of the original comments that were made, if you look on the screen, the site is zoned U9, and a restaurant is an expressly permitted use in the U9 district. So the reason we came before and again, the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, we had some disagreement on that respectfully as to whether we just went to the Board of Zoning Appeals for the variances. It was decided because of this 1274 application that we would go to the Planning Commission, which we did and presented the plan there. But it is U9 zoning. As you can see, the property is located at the corner of Miramar and Cedar. Go to the next slide, please. And as you can see, it's on a fairly heavily well-traveled commercial corridor, which obviously abuts University Heights and South Euclid. It is also more than 5 miles away from any other Chick-fil-A restaurant, as you can see on this slide. And if you look at the existing conditions, I think the mayor made some points about the existing buildings. It's a well-worn suburban medical office building. That's what it was built as probably a half a decade ago, or half a century ago. Has significant vacancies. But we are looking to acquire the entire site and redevelop it. So there would be demolition on the site and complete redevelopment of the site. If I can go to the next slide. This is the project time frame and timeline. So we had filed originally on February 1, 2023, and we had several comments from the community, from the city. We've been to several meetings with the Planning Commission and the Architectural Review Board. So the project has gone through a very strict review process with your professionals that work directly for the City of University Heights. Next slide, please. We note that the traffic engineering review approved the site and project. The engineering department approved the site and project. the police department approved it, the fire department approved it. On the next slide, you'll see that there were formal memos from fire, engineering, and police that this, and I quote specifically, that they confirmed that the results of the traffic impact study, that there was no negative impact, and the proposed development will not result in any significant impact to the adjacent road network. The proposed site access configuration is appropriate and will acceptably facilitate site ingress and egress. So I just note that for the record, before we actually had formal presentations to the Planning Commission, we did have your professionals review the site in detail, review the project in detail, and they all were in simpatico as it relates to approving what was being proposed by Chick-fil-A. At some point in time, the project was also reviewed by a planner named Richard Hirsch from Safe Built in Oakland, California, and Mr. Hirsch prepared a very exhaustive 31-page zoning code compliance matrix. Ms. Accardo and our office and also Chick-fil-A and Sean Walker reviewed that plan. We went back and forth through your law director to address all of the issues that were raised in that plan. And we came down to the application formally being addressed to the City Planning Commission with the request for one, a special use permit for an outdoor dining patio. Yes, you need an outdoor dining patio in University Heights to be a special use permit. That was requested by folks in the community and some of the community meetings we had, I might add. The original plan did not have that. Then there's also a need for a special use permit for a drive-through. As you know, with banks and restaurants, drive-throughs are very common, in particular given the COVID situation. That is a common business plan in this country today, and Chick-fil-A probably operates one of the most efficient and safest drive-through programs. In addition, there were some area variances that are described on your agenda, which again, we looked at that meeting that was attended that they could be deemed to be waived or to have the variances granted in a time limited to the duration of the special use permit, which we took to mean if the building were torn down and somebody else came in, they still have to apply for variances. But most of those variances resulted from the conflict between the U9 district under 1266 and the application of section 1274. We'll talk about that here shortly. After we went to planning and got approval from planning, we also received unanimous approval from the Architectural Review Board. We had 3 members vote in favor of it, 1 member abstained. So we did receive that approval. During that meeting, there were at least 7 suggested changes to the architectural design of the building, some of the landscaping features. All of those were integrated into the plan that you'll see tonight and that Heather Simcoe will describe to you in some detail. So first of all, I would like to now, at this point, turn the presentation over to Leslie to review the following slides.
Good evening. So the plan that you're seeing right now was the original site plan that we had provided with our site plan approval package. You'll notice that the patio was behind the building. We had 2 drive-through lanes going through the entire site. We did not have any pedestrian access from the street, and we just had the code required landscaping, nothing above and beyond. We did receive plan review comments from the city engineer. We went back and addressed those, and we also revised the plans and resubmitted. This was revision 2. You'll notice that we have pedestrian access added directly from Cedar Road. We moved the patio to the front side of the building to allow better visibility. The meal planning delivery drive-through was moved along Miramar instead of along the front of Cedar Road. And we reduced the drive-through lanes from 2 going all the way through to 1 after you pick up your meal. And then we also added some landscape enhancements based on feedback received. This is the most recent plan. This is revision 3, there's one more after this. We also, in this one, we adjusted the sidewalk near the dumpsters to create more site landscaping. We added striping in the parking lot to enhance the pedestrian connectivity. We added a low wall with, so they're pilasters with wrought iron along Cedar Road and along with additional landscaping to provide more of a buffer as well between the residential apartments across the street. And then this is our current plan with, again, we've added some additional plantings along Miramar. We've added some berms to the site as well. And we reduced the flagpole height to 35 feet. This is a plan showing the various plantings, the heights that they will end up being. We thought this was very important to have so you can see what the plants will end up looking like. We have a nice variety of both deciduous and evergreen. And this is an example of the low wall. And I'm planting just an example. I'm going to now turn this over to Heather Simcoe at E&H, and she is going to present on the elevations. And she's online.
And Tony, we would ask that she be sworn as well.
Yeah, I thought I tried to make that in the record that they were, but you can, if you want to do it again, the vice mayor.
If you'll stipulate that they're sworn.
Yeah, we'll stipulate that the representatives of Chick-fil-A, which would be Heather Simcoe, possibly Sean Walker, and the traffic engineer would be assumed to be sworn in.
Thank you.
So Heather, you have the floor on the original elevations.
Are they unable to unmute themselves?
Heather? Saw her on this one.
He's here.
Technology is great until it's not.
As a person who's technology.
Plus we got, I can't help it. Kids.
Oh, we can hear you, Heather. Just speak up.
Oh, okay. So on this first slide, we have our original elevation, our prototypical two-tone brick building with bronze accents. The dumpster enclosure uses that same darker tan brick color that we have there, and we are showing in this version the parapet height to the top of framing is 28.4.5 inches. And then on the next slide, after receiving feedback from council, we have raised the parapet significantly to try to achieve that two-story appearance that is required by the code. We've increased glazing on this elevation, on these elevations, and added some extra accent detailing in these the volume spacing cedar. And then after presenting this to council again, on the next slide, we'll see our revised.
Hold on, Heather. Hold on 1 second.
Oh.
I think we have to go forward one more slide.
I'm still here. I'm not able to see which slide we're on.
Yeah, we're going to go to 17.
Okay.
So one more. This is 16. If we can get to 17, it's the next slide.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, okay, now we're on slide 17, which is the elevation revision 2.
Yes, this is revision 2, the changes made after our first appearance at council. Again, the raised.
I think we just want to say ARB instead of council.
Really, planning commission and council, but you're right.
Well,
Yeah,
not council.
just for the record, yeah, not council, planning commission or ARB.
Planning commission, thank you.
Sorry.
And after further comments, if we could go to slide 18, please.
All set, Heather.
We are now seeing our final version of these elevations after additional feedback from the Planning Commission and the ARB. We've increased the glazing on all of the elevations significantly, especially the elevations along Cedar and our parking area where the majority of the guests come in. Feedback received from the ARB to include additional glazing on our east and west elevations, and also the I'm sorry, everyone. We've also added secondary material, the Nishihara panels, to give the building a more modern look. And just really, really invested in that modern, forward-facing look along Cedar Road.
If I could just help with that, these were suggestions made by the Architectural Review Board that Chick-fil-A followed. Go ahead, Heather.
And if we could go to the next slide. Okay, I can see that now. Thank you. In this view, you can see the height of the landscaping at the time of installation to kind of give the impression of what the building is going to look like screened from Miramar and again from the access road on our site. So the east and west elevations there. And we are on the perspective.
Yes.
Again, seeing the landscaping, the low wall with the wrought iron gate between there. You can see our view of the patio here, very welcoming, very encouraging of pedestrian access from Cedar Road. We also are providing bike parking and quite a bit of landscaping to screen the refuge enclosure from any residences and to reduce any light pollution that the neighboring sites may receive from drive-through traffic. And then, next slide. Here we have some examples of our signage. Again, this is only provided as a reference. As I understand it, the signage is a separate application, but we would like to provide this now for review just as an example. So we have our monument sign with small signage letters, our menu board, our typical directional, our flagpole, and then on the slide 22, examples of our wall sign.
And I'll start off in a second too. The signage is submitted to the building department after approvals are received, and then if there are issues with either the design, size, or variances, they come back to ARB for review and approval. So we presented those just for illustrative purposes, not requesting approval of the signage package. And we thought it was important for the council to know that, because the real reason we're here is for the Planning Commission affirmation. So I just wanted to point that out. We can go to the next slide here. And I think these are helpful slides when you consider this project along the corridor of Cedar in the city of University Heights. As you can see, this is the commercial heart of University Heights. If I can approach from the left side is the Dunkin' Donuts, all the way to Miramar, which is the location of the proposed Chick-fil-A. The red line that's been inserted there is the building setback line. If you look at it carefully, you will see that Chick-fil-A will have the most amount of landscaping in front of its building line of anything along Cedar, as you can look at it. It's important because we were advised to be as green as we could. We added significant landscaping. We also added pedestrian connections to the restaurant. There is a likelihood that you're going to get a redevelopment, hopefully, at University Square, and that would be important given the fact that we may have apartments going in next door. So that landscaping is significant given the built environment. Some parts of the commercial corridor in University Heights have virtually no landscaping in front of any of the buildings along Cedar. Zero. Even Dunkin' Donuts, it's all gravel. No landscaping. Now, as you can see, there's the Dunkin' Donuts and there's the commercial shopping center. The way the parking is configured, there's virtually no landscaping. Now, if we could go to the next slide. If we go to the next slide, this shows the rationale. Right. You okay?
Yeah, I think it was somebody with a nose.
So again, the standards for the special permits that we've requested are we believe, thoroughly met. The drive-through is keeping them similar to adjacent projects as well as the existing site, which has a drive-through on it. Oops, if we could stay there for a second. There we go. Also, the outdoor patio was really encouraged from almost the very beginning. There was actually a site plan submitted that did not even have an outdoor patio. So that we thought was a major amenity. There's additional seating. There's 68 seats in the restaurant, and that amenity would be very attractive to pedestrians because you can walk into the site through a sidewalk. We're not really adjacent to a residential district. There's an apartment building behind it that's separated by a large parking lot, although we do have some landscaped areas. The drive-through site has been designed to contain traffic on site in University Drive. We've added additional landscaping, a low wall, location of the building has been purposeful to be in harmony with adjacent businesses and residential. I might add, they will capture all of the vehicles on site. You can look at some, particularly more urban restaurants that have a drive-through, and they can't necessarily easily keep the cars on site, and that's a safety issue. This site will be able to accommodate all the cars during their peak time on site. And then again, the outdoor patio was encouraged by staff, and we think it's a nice amenity for the community and those who are going to patronize Chick-fil-A. And again, Chick-fil-A spent a lot of time looking at sites. They think this part of Cuyahoga County, this community in particular, that this would be a very successful restaurant proposal. So what we would request is, very respectfully, that this council affirm the recommendation of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission made the recommendation, and as I said from the beginning, there is some confusion, and one of the council members mentioned the concept of redoing some parts of your zoning code. I wouldn't disagree with that. And if we go to the next slide, as an example, the property is zoned U9, which is governed by Chapter 1266. If applicable, you could apply the 1274, which is more for religious institutions and medicinal marijuana facilities. So it was suggested, because it could be applicable, that we should follow that. When you do that, we have conflicts. So the variances which the Planning Commission deemed to be potentially waivable are up here. And I'll give you just 4 examples. Under 1266 U9, this site requires an additional, or requires a minimum of 1 acre in size under 1266. We are on a site that's 2.15 acres. So we comply. And that's what we originally thought. If you look at 1274, houses of assembly and social service uses, the minimum acreage size is 3. I don't think a Chick-fil-A would fit into one of those uses. Under required area for usage and frontage requires 20%. We provide 31%. We comply under 1266. Under 1274, houses of assembly and social service uses, it's 50%. We don't comply with that one. So that would be a variance issue. As it relates to area, yard, and height and regulations and usage and frontage regulations, and these are taken from your planning consultant's analysis, if I might add, requires 30 feet on Cedar, and we provide 66 feet from the property line. Under the 1274 code, it's 75 feet. For parking facilities, there's no specific requirement for the parking, exit lanes, widths, entrances, or what have you, and this 1274 provides 24 feet of maximum width. So we believe that we have looked at your code. We have worked with really good engineers and architects to try to come up with a project that we think would be well received by the community. And again, from February 1st of last year, we've had countless meetings and countless revisions by our engineers, by our architects, and listening to people in the community at meetings such as this that we've attended. And so we would request that the council affirm the recommendations of your planning commission, given all of the analysis that they did in making that recommendation. And we would be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your presentation. I'll start off with any comments and I'll open it up to the rest of council. First of all, I appreciate the time that you have spent with the city. I know, you've mentioned it's been over a year at this point. I've attended all of the planning meetings. Attended the last ARP meeting also. I want to, make it very clear that whatever my vote on it has nothing to do with the entity of Chick-fil-A at all. It has to do with the city of University Heights. There's a couple things that stuck out with me. The previous slide in particular, those 4 pieces of information, and I'd like the law director to elaborate on those. But in the zoning code review that we had in Safe Build, which is our building department, do, and we had an outside entity from Safe Build do it. One of their comments was that the overall project is supposed to enhance and improve the character of the community and be appropriate and compatible with the surroundings in accordance with the intent, objectives, and development requirements. Yet the layout does not integrate with the fabric of the surrounding neighborhood and does not reflect the evolving character of the surrounding built environment. That struck a chord with me. I feel personally that the city of University Heights has a future vision, especially with what's going to be built next to it. And we hope that we will have a forward-thinking development there. Our own building department feels that it doesn't reflect what our city is. It doesn't conform with that. And I happen to agree with that. And that's besides the whole 1274 issue. And before I open it up to other comments, I would like the law director to elaborate on that piece.
Well, just to further explain the city's position, I guess. Mr. Coyne is correct that most of the variances that are in front of you relate to Chapter 1274. I believe there's only 1 or 2 that fall under 1266. The requirements in 1274 are more burdensome. The legal analysis is that the provisions of 1266 O2, I believe it's O2B, specifically indicate that a a drive-through use is to be looked at for compliance with the provisions of 1274. As Mr. Coyne has noted for the record, that's an item that he and I disagree on. That's noted for the record, but the city's position is that in order to put a drive-through in a U9, the requirements of 1274 must be met.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
If I can respond to your comments, there are a couple of things I think are really important. I don't know that the planning consultant ever spent any time in University Heights ever. So those comments, while they're well intended, if he had been, your planning director was at a table that I could say, let's take a look at this, I might have some sensitivity to that. He never, to my knowledge, spent a foot in University Heights. He did his planning analysis from Oakland, California, number one. Number two, I think zoning matters. I really think it's important. And the zoning code provides for this use as being a permitted use. So I understand.
Not under 1274.
Is it a religious institution? Was there a finding by the planning commission? I know this is where we have some disagreement. Was there a finding by the planning commission that it had to be applied? I don't think that happened, but that is a separate discussion. But we again addressed those reasons and requested variances and got approval from your planning commission. And I think I hopefully thoroughly reviewed the qualifications of your planning commission members who heard presentations on more than one occasion and approved this.
Okay, but I'm just stating it wasn't unanimous.
It was 4-1. I believe.
No, it wasn't.
Or 3-2. I'm sorry, 3-2. Yes. And again, under the law, that's an approval.
It was approved.
That's an approval.
I'm not disagreeing.
And for ARB, it was 3 to an abstention, which is not counted as a vote. So it was unanimous. So all I'm saying is, we can only look at your code and meet with your traffic engineers, your police, your fire, your consultant from California with a 31-page report, and these were the only variance items that came to fruition at the end after Leslie worked hard with them and through your council. So I urge you to really look at the zoning code that you have before you to allow this to be approved and affirmed given the work of your planning commission.
I just also want you to know that one of the reasons we're having the meeting today is because I specifically requested that City Council have time to review everything. And I don't know if you saw any of my emails that you were copied on, but there wasn't enough time to review the meeting, all of the meetings and the minutes after ARB, right? Because that was Thursday and the council meeting was Monday. So I wanted to make sure, me personally, and I was at the meetings, had time to review everything. So I wanted to do my due diligence.
Right.
And City Council does have the opportunity, to say yay or nay on the variances.
Yes.
That's why it's coming here.
And we know the package you got was quite significant. We hope you were able to go through that. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, Mr. King.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I find there's a mismatch between the proposal and our zoning code. The three most prominent aspects of the Cedar Center mixed-use district zone are, and this is directly from the code, A, to permit and encourage mixture of uses, including higher density residential, offices, limited retail, and civic uses in a manner which ensures the area is functional and competitive in today's housing and retail markets. B, to provide increased opportunities for economic development while strengthening the diversity and uses found in the community. And C, to provide pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use district that imparts a sense of identity and creates a unique place in the center of our community. This code was passed on February 7th, 2000, nearly 24 years ago to this day. Predecessors recognized the importance of the Cedar Center District, specifically the vicinity of University Square. To this day, we are still working to make University Square vibrant. I cannot think of a land use more opposed to the spirit of the code than a drive-through fast food restaurant. It is single use, it is low density, it creates a hostile environment for pedestrians. I walked past the building on my way here tonight. Quite frankly, the existing building is a better fit for the zoning criteria. When running for office, my platform included thoughtful redevelopment of our limited land resources. Talking with residents, they said we needed to lean into the walkability and the bikeability of our community. People want to be able to walk safely to businesses. This project would create a wall of cars right next to University Square. University Heights is only 1.8 square miles. We must be vigilant over how our zoning code is applied. My apologies to the applicant. I truly do appreciate when there is a desire to make an investment in the city. Unfortunately, I strongly believe this project is not a proper fit for the Cedar Center mixed-use district. Thank you.
To our knowledge, the potential redevelopers have no objection to it. Mr. Brang, it shows investment in your community. It's a significant investment, so we hope you consideration of that. I understand the position.
Ms. Windsor?
Was your traffic study done at Cedar, for Cedar Road?
The traffic study, is Mr. Bauer available? What, Ms. Bauer?
Hi, this is Jill Bauer with Fishback. Yes, the question was, did the traffic study consider Cedar Road? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that was the question.
What I saw was a traffic study that came from a totally different area.
Could you hear, Joe?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
What I saw was a traffic study that came from a totally different area. Matter of fact, I think it was out of state.
She's in Detroit. Oh, Michigan, right.
From Michigan, yeah.
It didn't even open.
I don't know, can you hear that, Joe?
Yeah, so the question is of where the traffic study was done in Michigan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A didn't even open.
So, yes, I am located in Michigan. We, as a company, do have offices in Ohio and Toledo. So we are in Ohio and have engineers in Ohio who are familiar with this area in University Heights.
So was there an updated traffic study on Cedar Road?
Yeah. That actually had traffic counts from Cedar Road.
Yes, we did do traffic counts on Cedar Road at the intersection with the University Square driveway, across from the Burger King driveway.
There was nothing in the documents.
In your packet, there's a memo from Joe Chuney dated February 27, 2023, noting that the proposed development will not result in a significant impact to the adjacent road network. The proposed site access configuration is appropriate and will acceptably facilitate site ingress and egress. No proposed improvements are recommended at the studied intersections. So the traffic engineer did look at the traffic on Cedar at Miramar, and that was the conclusion.
That isn't the question I asked Mr. Coyne. I asked a specific question, Mr. Coyne, not what Joe Chuney said.
Okay.
I asked if you submitted a physical traffic study for the traffic at Cedar, Warrensville, and Miramar.
We did not study the intersection at Cedar and Miramar. It's not what we were asked to look at. We did not look at Warrensville and Cedar Road.
So the scope was defined by the city engineer, and that's what we based the traffic study on. So we had a meeting with Joe Cuney. He explained what we needed to provide in the traffic study, and that's what was provided.
So was that provided to planning?
Mr. McConville, we do have a specific report from Mr. Chuni with traffic details here.
Well, this
But
is-
it was not provided to us because I never saw that before.
This is labeled Chick-fil-A University Heights, Ohio Traffic Impact Study. It's dated February 23rd, 2023. The only reason I have this is because it was provided to me in a packet, presumably a planning commission packet. It does have traffic analysis at Cedar Road and the University Square driveway. So I can pass this down. Just for purposes of the record, there were materials decided.
And my understanding, again, I wasn't here for some of that, but there's no curb cut on the Miramar, so I can see why that was a suggested direction for the traffic impact analysis.
If I could just clarify regarding the traffic study, I read through, there's two different documents here. There's the traffic impact study drafted January 25th, 2023, and then there's...
Sorry, Council, was that January 25th?
2023, that's on the cover letter here, or the cover. And then there's another document here, also called Chick-fil-A Traffic Impact Study, dated February 23rd, 2023. I mentioned this in the Planning Commission, and I'll mention it again tonight. One of the requirements that I had, if we were to come back to Planning Commission, was to provide a newer traffic study. This particular traffic study had a lot of flaws that I had pointed out in the Planning Commission meeting. First and foremost, the data that was conducted from, they used data from a store in Indiana, and let me just find a sheet of paper here. Well, here it is. From 2016, they used data from 2016, so that's 8 years ago. We've had a pandemic since then that has changed the way we commute, it has changed the way we order our meals, it has changed the way the fast food industry has performed. Obviously, you notice in your metrics, it's been an increase in sales during COVID and after COVID. So I had asked for specifically an updated traffic study that was more relevant and timely, that would be conducted in real time. This one was in 2016, using data generated from the South Bend, Indiana location for the Michigan location, which was,
Mr. Rock, that was the Planning Commission meeting that you attended, right?
Yes, this is where I spoke.
Okay.
Yes. So they used it for a location in Michigan that didn't get built at the location that was proposed in the traffic study. In the traffic study, they were proposing a store in a mall area in the parking lot of the Target, which did not end up getting built there. I don't know if it's been built since, but at the time of the Planning Commission, the proposal was to go at the Golden Corral location across the street. So there was a totally different set of feedback here regarding traffic, because one's coming out of a mall and one's coming out of a freestanding location. The other flaw that I was discovering in this traffic study was, in order to get the passing grade, University Heights would have to update its signals. And nowhere did we discuss updating our signals. And if Chick-fil-A wants to pay for us to update our signals, then we can talk about that. But at this, to receive the passing grade, we would have to. That was one of the footnotes here, one of the charts. Also, regarding the traffic study, I had requested in the Planning Commission that we review more local restaurants as opposed to Indiana and Michigan. Specifically, there's one on Harvard Road and there's one on Mayfield Road.
Right, correct.
Yeah. And so I did take it upon myself to review those particular locations. I clocked in exactly 60 minutes, 0 seconds. I counted 209 cars at the Mayfield location between 12 o'clock on the dot and 1 o'clock on a Saturday, and 206 cars at the Harvard Road location between 12 o'clock on the dot and 1 p.m. on a Monday. Sunday, the locations were closed. So, and that had come up at some other point, someone had verified it's about 200 cars an hour, give or take. So that sort of validates my traffic count of about 200 cars. But you have to understand too, it's not just 200 cars per hour, they're going in and out. So it's really 400 trips across the apron. So when we're looking at site plans here about pedestrian access, you have to also consider there are 400 times in 1 hour that a vehicle will cross that apron.
That's incorrect.
Also,
do we know that for the record, the traffic engineer would like to respond?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we hear what she has to say?
Joe, could you comment on that?
Yes, so I don't know, Leslie, if you've been able to share the studies that we did do in Michigan at 3 different locations that we have studied in the past for Chick-fil-A that supported the data that was used in the study from South Bend, Indiana. But we have looked at other locations. We've done a similar thing. We've looked during the peak hour. One thing we always look at when we do these traffic counts is the size of the site. That is something that's used when we're using data to forecast these types of trips, is the size of the restaurant itself. And as far as the traffic signal upgrades that are discussed in the report, this was something that when we were talking to the traffic engineer, the city traffic engineer back in February of last year, because we forecast our trips in the data to a 2033 timeline, that was, he told us to include that there were going to be projects to upgrade those signals within that 10-year time frame. So, understanding it's not here to speak for that, but that was something that we were going through in scoping the project and working on the study that we talked about with the city engineer at that time.
But
Hi, Bill, can you also clarify the counts when it's a 200 at peak? That's 100 in and 100 going out?
Well, for this site in particular, in the study, we forecast 293 total trips, and we have about 150 coming in and 150 going out, and that's based on that data from South Bend, Indiana. I do not have the Michigan data in front of me, but we have done, like I said before, we've done studies at other locations in Michigan looking at the traffic for those Chick-fil-A's, and that has been since COVID, so that it's newer data that was mentioned. So that is something we can share.
okay, so thank you for confirming that the report does specify that in a 10-year span, traffic signals would be modernized, which would give this a passing grade. Now, 10 years is a very long time. It's almost as old as this report, which was data which came out in 2016. So I just want to clarify that. Another thing that got brought up was about the votes in Planning Commission and Architecture Review Board. I want to be clear, in Architecture Review Board, the original vote was 2 for and 2 abstain.
Right.
The motion would have failed.
That's not what happened.
I understand.
3-4,
The
one
motion-
abstained, and the abstention vote does not count.
But the motion would have failed. Mr. Couturier took it upon himself to change his vote to yes, so that the city council can approve this, so it can get out of ARB.
It's not in the record at all.
Well, it's in the record that there was a motion on the floor.
Okay, but ARB passed.
It did pass, but I just want to be clear, it was not originally 3-1, it was 2-2.
But it's not 3-1, it's 3 votes in favor, and an abstention is not counted in such a vote. An abstention doesn't count. In fact, you shouldn't abstain at the end of the meeting. You should do it at the beginning of the meeting. I didn't understand that, but an abstention is either a no vote or a yes vote. So there were 3 in favor and no opposed.
We can debate Robert's rules.
That's just Robert's rules. Thank you.
They make Robert's rules later, Mr. Quinn.
But I know you encouraged Mr. Gutierrez to change his vote because it wasn't going to pass with 2 yes.
Well, I encourage them all to support it.
Thank you. I spoke at length at the Planning Commission. I will save you that 1 hour of time that I gave reading the zoning code. But I do want to bring up a couple key points. Mr. King brought up the sole purpose of the U9 district here. And I'm not going to reread it because he already did, but I really want to reiterate that this is going into a U9 district. And so the threshold is much higher than any other district here in what it's requiring. Yes, restaurants are a permitted use, but the purpose of U9 is to encourage mixed use. Of that mixed use, a restaurant can be a component of that. It's supposed to have housing, retail, restaurants, it's mixed use. Now, you can do a restaurant without a drive-through. That is a permitted use. What you're here before us today is to do the drive-through. That is a special use. That's a special
permit.
That's not a permitted use. That's a special permit use, which is why you have to come before us today.
Right.
Another thing I want to really address is the waiving of variances. Now, I see here in the agenda that upon personal reflection of the discussion, we're going to amend the waiver of variances to a granting of variances, time limited to the duration of special use permit. Well, that's not what the Planning Commission approved. The Planning Commission approved the waiver. So,
let me interrupt for a moment because I can shed some light on our research on that. We researched both issues. First, whether a waiver was permissible, and we determined that it's absolutely permissible and does not set a precedent that you would be bound by in future decisions relating to SUPs under 1274. So if council is inclined, they can simply ratify or approve the Planning Commission recommendation. Alternatively, we also researched the issue of whether variances can be temporally limited, and we found case law that established that they very clearly can be. That was an issue that I was not able to address at the Planning Commission meeting. During the course of that meeting, I asked Mr. Coyne if he knew the answer to that question. He was not comfortable opining. We indicated to the Planning Commission that we would circle back and do research on that and present the results of the research to council. So my recommendation to council is that variances be considered because that's a more conventional act of the city to provide the grant of variances if you're so inclined to grant the special use permit, and to temporarily limit them to address the concern that was raised at Planning Commission that those variances not run with the land and bind the city indefinitely.
Thank you. And that was my concern at the Planning Commission. Since we would consider, upon reflection of this discussion, to amend the waiver in lieu of granting variances, it is my opinion that in the Planning Commission, we really didn't vet these variances one by one. And as I tried to do that, it was like, well, we just waived it. So I don't feel it was vetted properly. You can even look at the zoning code compliance matrix, which was done by our consultant. And I do take exception about the author not being in University Heights. I wrote the original matrix and prepared it for the Planning Commission, the administration, as well as the applicant. My work on that had been confirmed in this matrix. Now I live here, I serve here, I run here. But I'm saying the components that are in his matrix, I can confirm. He had actually confirmed my work. So it's sort of validating that what I had discovered in terms of discrepancies between what's proposed and what's in the zoning code were confirmed by the professional. And since we didn't really get a good chance to vet each particular variances one by one, there's a few things in particular that are concerning to me with regard to the site plan and traffic flow. On page 33 of that matrix, which is towards the end, it's basically the summary, but it's under site layout. The consultant talks about a number of project features that continue to fail to meet the minimum code requirements. And in particular, talks about vehicular flow of traffic. So according to the Institute of Transportation Engineers Traffic Engineering Handbook, parking and terminals, which is the city's standard, this is what the city uses to evaluate its projects. There were deficiencies in the plan. In particular, the drive aisles at 20 feet, where the requirement is 24 feet. Now, where this could become a problem is if you had a 20-foot drive aisle, which falls below the standard, it's going to be very hard for cars to back in and out of these particular spaces. Coupled with that, you have the drive-through that exits through that drive aisle and then has to make a hairpin turn, 180-degree hairpin turn at this private drive, which actually happens to be a variance that we would either waive or consider for granting. And that was the 7-foot variance for the radius at the edge of the driveway apron, where it's required to be 12 feet. So already it's too tight. But now if we have to add another 4 feet for each drive aisle, that curb's going to move out 8 more feet, which would really make that turn impossible.
I can let Leslie address the drive aisle meets your code though. So I mean,
but it
wasn't a variance needed. No, that's the ingress and egress issue that's in
but right here,
1270-404.
It says in the consultant's notes that the handbook states minimum 24-foot aisle widths. However, 2 proposed aisles in the more northerly parking area are 20 feet and 20 feet and a half feet wide.
We don't have
Those are one way.
Doesn't matter. These are cars backing in and out. If it was one way and angled, then the drive aisle width can be reduced. There are parking lots here in University Heights that have one-way angled parking. This does not. This has 90-degree parking. It's really not about the direction of flow. It's about being able to turn your car 90 degrees out of the parking spot and into the aisle. I do have concerns since you have pedestrian access through the middle of the parking lot here, when you're going to have Uber drivers, DoorDash drivers coming in and out of these front spots. I'm assuming they'll probably park up front. Or any type of delivery driver. They're going to be backing in and out all day as cars are exiting the drive-through 200 an hour. It's just going to happen. There's going to be fender benders. Every one of our commercial properties in University Heights has had some type of fender bender at some point. But when you fall below the standard, now you're asking the council here, who has to approve a planning commission recommendation, who never vetted this in the first place, whether we're okay with falling below traffic standards. And again, it's your role here to, through clear and convincing evidence, that the provisions of the chapter will be met regarding vehicular parking and pedestrian and traffic conditions.
So,
I'm not hearing that.
So we're going to vote on variances, and if it passes, that can be discussed going forward, but I think that's important to be noted. Thank you. Ms. Weiser?
I wasn't finished.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not either, but you go ahead and then I'll go.
Mr. Rock, to bring this part to, not Ms. Weiser, I don't want to interrupt you. To bring this part to close, we could look at that angle parking issue. I'm just saying. You're raising it, we could look at it.
We can look at a lot. Number one, with all due respect, Mr. McConville, I am not inclined to move to granting the variances in a time-limited format, especially when variances have not been thoroughly vetted. Quite frankly, I think the action to waive the variances, however it came about, was inappropriate. I think we have codes for a reason, and we just love to do variances on codes, and hopefully as we update our zoning code, we'll have something that's solid. The site for Chick-fil-A is a much larger site than what we had at Dunkin' Donuts. The building at Dunkin' Donuts was not a big office building. It was a small building. It had art jewelers, it had sills, and there might have been a couple small offices up on the second floor. So, while I appreciate that we want to go back there and say, oh, look, this fits this, I don't think we can. The issues with Waterway are different. One of the problems that happened with Waterway, they refused, if I remember correctly, and a lot of this stuff I do, they refused to move their building forward, and at that time we had a zoning code that actually took that back area and it was zoned for parking, and that's why it just wasn't people who didn't want Waterway for whatever reason. It was an issue also with the zoning on the site. I can appreciate that you would prefer 1266 over 1274. I think that 1274 applies. I'm very comfortable with the law department and their ruling on this. I know we go back and forth, even here on council, where the mayor always wants to be his own law director. And, we get these back and forths. Attorneys will love to do that. However, I think that there is a very valid case for 1274. And under 1274, you're almost an acre short. You can say, oh, we can put Chick-fil-A on 1 acre. Well, I suppose you could. It's jammed in on Cedar and, not Cedar, Mayfield Heights, on a very, very small lot. And there are issues with that site with traffic coming out of there, which has gotten worse over time. Part of my family works for Hillcrest, so we go through there all the time. This is a visual, it's anecdotal because it's visual. It's not a physical count, but I can tell you it has gotten more and more problematic.
It's a popular restaurant.
So you're basically, although you, I think, started out by saying we were not that short, you are almost an acre short. 0.85 is very close to 1.
For what type of use, though? When you say that, what type of use is 1274 going?
I'm not, that's...
Did Dunkin' Donuts comply with 1274?
But you went for, because of the way the code is currently written,
right.
1266 ends up referring to 1274.
If it's applicable.
And I believe the ruling of the law director is correct and it is applicable. I can appreciate, Mr. Coyne, that you will work very hard to represent your client and that you will argue your client's case very, very well. However, I don't work for your client. I don't have any problem with a restaurant. I really could care if it's Chick-fil-A or George's Big Boy, I don't know. But the reality is you're short on the size by 1274, and I agree. The other part of this is, however crazy our zoning codes might be, they are designed to deliver what the community standard is. And even when you go back to when the Supreme Court upheld zoning, nuisances, all of those issues. I'm not saying Chick-fil-A is a nuisance. Please do not take it that way, and I'm clarifying that. But those things all came in terms of comparable uses, how we do things. That's how the code got written. And quite frankly, I think it's time for the city to not just turn around and waive codes, but to actually begin to honor them until we finish our whole zoning code update. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with this section when we update that zoning code. Maybe then you can come back and we can put Chick-fil-A in that site. But the fact is, it's not updated yet. We're working with the code, and the code actually has done a good thing for the city for a lot of years. And I don't think we should throw it out.
Can I address, Mr. Mayor? Given Mr. Rock's comments on the parking layout, the angled parking, the signalization, and a Chick-fil-A paid for the signalization, these code issues about how the Planning Commission reviewed this, seems to be some procedural disagreement among some of the members of council. Could I request that this matter at this time just be tabled so that we can maybe address those issues?
I mean, I think we're ready at this point to take a vote. You've wanted this for a while already.
Yes, but I did not expect some of these issues to be raised the way they've been raised. I really did not. And I'm concerned that there's allegations that the Planning Commission didn't do their job in looking at this when they made a decision with a waiver, and then there was a review by the law director that's permissible. There's also a review about having the variances approved but tied to, a time limit. And I'm not hearing any kind of consensus among council, so that's concerning. Mr. Rock has raised the issue of the parking layout, which is something we could look at again, and the cost of signalization, and you're looking at your code. So I guess my concern is that the way we have been presented to you after getting approvals from all of your professional boards and consultants, that there's still deficiencies. When I see that, I like to try to bring the best project forward for any community, including this one. So that's why I would make the request.
So I've been, as I mentioned before, I've been to all of the meetings. The parking, the 20 versus 24 was mentioned at the meeting. 1274 was mentioned at the meeting.
Right.
The traffic signals were mentioned at the meeting. These are not new.
I don't remember the traffic signal, I'll be honest with you. I don't remember requesting.
So that was specifically, I remember that specifically. So none of these are new. I think, I know that I'm ready to vote. I think that after reviewing all of this information, I think that Planning Commission reviewed everything. There was an outside zoning code review. There was a definitive vote. The law director many times explained to Planning Commission and to ARB and to City Council what that waiver meant. Is that correct, Mr. McConville?
We were pretty explicit on that at Planning Commission as indicating that it would be an issue that we would follow up and do additional research on. I don't think it's by any means a fair characterization to say that the Planning Commission did not vet these variances. This applicant has been before the Planning Commission 3 times. One of those occasions, the applicant appeared before the Planning Commission only for the purposes of asking questions of Planning Commission members as to what their preferences would be relating to certain design standards. At the last Planning Commission meeting, each of the 7 variances was addressed one by one, both by code section and by description of the requested variance as it related to the particular site plan. It was only because there was a concern that was voiced relating to future development that was being put out there and possibly would have held the applicant up further, that this idea of waiver was discussed and approached by Planning Commission. It was not, in my opinion, any decision to be flippant about our zoning code, to casually do anything. It was the opposite. It was the desire to tailor an approval that was as narrow as they could make it so that the city wouldn't be adversely impacted by that approval in the context of any future development. And that was followed up with research in which we learned that variances can be temporally limited, and as I mentioned before, since that's a more conventional approach, an approach that is less susceptible to misunderstanding or mischaracterization, that's the law department's recommendation.
And to the Vice Mayor, I tend to agree with much of what you said, but I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that there are members of council that believe the Planning Commission did not consider those variances in the way that you just described. That's what I'm hearing. So that gives me cause for concern, which I thought maybe would be better addressed table, but that's just my perception.
Yes, as the chair of the Planning Commission, as the one that made the motion, and I made the motion carefully following the guidance of our law director, in light of the Mr. McConville has been diplomatic in a way that I will not be, that this was a concern raised expressly by Mr. Rock, that he did not want to see variances that ran with the land continuously. And we wanted to accommodate his concern. It was his concern in particular. He made a motion to reject this application, and there was no second. And because there was no second, I read the room to me that the Planning Commission was ready to approve something. So I crafted a motion following the guidance of the law director, respecting what I had hoped at the time were the bona fide concerns of Mr. Rock, to waive the variances, though that was a concept that we had not engaged in previously, rather than granting variances that would run with the special use permit or some other limitation. Mr. McConville faithfully, with the law department, did the research and shared that with all members of council in November. And we have members of council here today acting like they haven't heard of that. The Planning Commission vetted this at length, more than any other application I can think of in recent time. And though Mr. Rock may have been on the losing end of a Planning Commission recommendation, just because he voted no, doesn't mean that he speaks for the Planning Commission in saying that the ones that voted yes didn't properly vet the variances. We vetted them. Now, if there are other reasons, Mr. Coyne, that you would seek to table, if there's other reasons why you would like to supplement your application, I think we should allow that. I think you should be given every opportunity to give the city the best application that you can give if there are still concerns after a year of what it is that is before us, and that the council members have what they need in order to have this vote, and moreover, that you feel as if, you think as if, you have provided everything that the council should have in order to make the best decision it can. So if you as the applicant are asking for a motion table, I would urge our council to indulge the applicant and allow them the additional time to provide whatever additional information they believe is appropriate to help you have everything you need before you make your vote. Thank you.
Mr. King?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a question for Mr. McConville. You've stated that we would vote on each of the 7 variances independently?
That's correct.
Okay. Would it be possible to make a motion to reject the recommendation from the Planning Commission as one vote?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to reject the Planning Commission recommendation from the October 5th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting regarding the site plan application approval from PEA Group for the construction of a new Chick-fil-A restaurant with drive-through at 14,100 Cedar Road, including the approval under, I'm going to end it there.
I'll object to the motion. It's not in the affirmative, it's in the negative under Robert's rules. That's not an appropriate motion. And I also believe that the decision as to how this was to be presented would require a separate vote. But I just want to note that for the record.
I think that's right, yeah. I reconsider. I think you should make a particular motion and start with the special use permits. I think the special use permits are essentially in order to grant the variance, the special use permits are, I'm trying to think what the right word is here.
Just for the record, we request again tabling to be fair. We're looking for fairness so that we can address some of the criticisms raised. We request tabling.
Ms. Weiser, you have a question?
Yes. Mr. McConville, if we use the motion that is currently in front of us up to by the applicant or made by the commission, period, is that a motion, is a motion in the affirmative that we can vote up and down? It includes the special use permits, it includes section 1274.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. King, can I make a friendly amendment?
You bet. Mr. Weiser.
Do you want to withdraw your motion and I'll make one? How do you want to do it?
Well, I think you need to withdraw your motion.
Yes, withdraw. Okay.
Can I say something first?
Go ahead.
Mr. Coyne, I just want to hear what you are asking, because the parking, the size of the driveways were addressed, the vetted was addressed.
The vetted, what does that mean?
What the vetting of the variances was addressed by Mr. McConville and by the mayor.
At the planning commission meeting.
At the planning commission meeting. What else are your concerns?
Well, my concern is you're not following that was done, and there were comments made by council that it was not done. And the issue of some of these changes that Mr. Rocket mentioned, including purchasing traffic signalization devices, not something we've contemplated doing, and we will evaluate some of those things, as well as the other issues that have been raised that have not been brought up.
So again, that issue was, I believe, also raised, but those could be after the fact of possible approval, right? Those are not based on approval.
You could have those conditioned. They could be approved with those conditions, which is why.
I don't think that's the crux, though, of an approval here. I think, in my opinion, that's not what's going to make or break this approval here. I mean, you've changed this many times to try, and get planning and ARB approved, which they did. I think council's aware of that. Mr. Rock, I just want to ask you, do you feel that the variances were not vetted? I don't think that's what you meant.
I said it was in my opinion.
Yes.
That first of all, I did not feel comfortable leaving.
But you said that even in planning, that was
in
not
planning,
done.
I did not feel comfortable leaving that planning commission meeting without a more thorough review of this site. Now, I want to be clear about something. The standard that we have today to vote is in 1274 that the applicant has to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that the provisions of this chapter will be met and the special use will not impair the surrounding property values or uses, vehicular parking, pedestrian or traffic conditions, lighting, glare at night, noise pollution to others. I have not heard clear and convincing evidence. That's the standard.
And what I want to make Mr. Coyne what I want to make it clear to Mr. Coyne is Mr. Rock is one vote on the planning commission
Correct.
and one vote on city council.
Right.
And planning commission approved it. So I don't believe that this council's vote would be negated by anything that Mr. Rock said.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that given the totality of the comments made, I would like the decision to be made on the zoning.
He's the only comment that has said that in council. Ms. Weiser?
I move to approve the Planning Commission recommendation from October 5th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting regarding the site plan application approval from PEA Group for the construction of a new Chick-fil-A restaurant with drive-through at 14100 Cedar Road, including the approval under University Heights Charter 1274 for a special use permit for drive-through and patio as depicted in the site plan application, and the findings that the conditions for which the variance sought by the applicant were waived by the commission, period.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Are there any comments or discussion? Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Nay.
Mrs. Sachs?
Nay.
Mr. Cooney?
Nay.
Mrs. Wise?
Nay.
Mr. Rock?
Nay.
Ms. Marshall? Nay. Ms. Weiser?
Nay.
I want to thank you, Chick-fil-A, for coming and the time that you've put in. Okay, we have the next agenda item, which is agenda item E, Resolution 2023-04, recognizing and celebrating Black History Month 2024.
Just on Miramar. Yes.
A resolution recognizing and celebrating Black History Month 2024. I'm just going to read through this, and then Mrs. Thomas.
Let me ask the audience to move their conversation out of here.
Yeah. I gotta go.
There's still a meeting happening?
Sorry.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas, do we have the official resolution for us to sign here? Oh, that's okay. We can sign it. We'll sign it.
I'm so sorry.
I'm just going to read it out loud and then we'll all sign it later. Whereas the city of University Heights is a community that values its diverse population and celebrates the many cultures, backgrounds, and histories of its residents. And whereas Black History Month has been recognized each February by U.S. presidents since 1976 and grew out of the creation of Negro History Week in 1926 by Carter G. Woodson, an author, historian, and son of enslaved persons. And whereas Black Americans have struggled and preserved through enslavement, persecution, and oppression, facing still today systematic barriers to equality in our economy and at the ballot box and in many other facets of American society. And whereas despite these seemingly unending challenges, Black Americans have continuously made critical contributions to America and the world through innovation in the arts, science, business, law, and governance, healthcare, education, and more, as well to our broader national culture and heritage. And whereas the Association for the Study of African American Life and History has declared the 2024 theme for Black History Month to be African Americans and the Arts, and whereas African American art is infused with African, Caribbean, and the Black American lived experiences, in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. The African American influence has been paramount, and whereas African American artists have used art to preserve history and community memory as well as for empowerment, and whereas for centuries Western intellectuals denied or minimized the contributions of people of African descent to the arts as well as history, even as their artistry in many genres was mimicked and or stolen. And whereas it is essential to our continued growth and progress as a nation that we honor the legacy and contributions of Black Americans, including artists, while vowing to continue the necessary work of reckoning with past injustice and seeking equity for our present and future, not only in this month, but indeed all year round. And whereas Black history is an American history, and during Black History Month, we pay tribute to the contributions and accomplishments of past generations as we reaffirm our commitment to keeping the American dream alive for generations to come. Now therefore be it jointly proclaimed by the Mayor and resolved by the City Council of the City of University Heights, Ohio, that the City of University Heights recognizes and honors Black History Month in February 2024, celebrates our Black neighbors, and encourages all residents to further educate themselves on Black history in America and seek remedies to continue injustices. It is hereby found that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and any of its committees that resulted in such formal actions were in meetings and open to the public in compliance of legal requirements. And in Section 3, this resolution is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety of the city. The emergency being for the reason that this resolution pertains to the concurrent celebration of Black History Month in February 2024, wherefore this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately after its adoption and approval by the Mayor. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2023-04, recognizing and celebrating Black History Month 2024? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Weiser, any comments? Okay, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rod?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Okay, that passes. Agenda letter F, Ordinance 2024-03, establishing permanent appropriations for the year ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency, but this is on first reading. Mr. Kennedy, did you want to say anything about this?
Yes, we make a couple of comments. Number one, we wanted to get this ordinance on for tonight's meeting because including tonight, there's only 4 regularly scheduled meetings before March 31st, and that's the state deadline for submitting our budget, permanent budget for the year to the Cuyahoga County Budget Commission. So the ordinance is on there in preliminary form. And as I suggested in the email that accompanied that, I believe we can go through this in greater detail, department by department, fund by fund, at one or more finance committee hearings. I would encourage us to expedite those as much as possible, just in the event of some unforeseen emergency in March. But I think we'll be able to answer all the questions, and we'll be open to modifying the budget if that's council's purview. That process should be fairly easy to accommodate. But just to give you some highlights of the budget I did send around, I didn't want to burden everybody with a huge narrative. I tried to put some bullet points, cliff notes together on an all funds basis. If you take all the funds that comprise the city's financial position, we have a negative variance, meaning we're spending more than we're taking in, at $65,563. So that's about 1/4 of the total expense budget. So it's not a material number. It is, I want to be upfront with everybody, it's negative variance, but it's not monumental. The general fund budget is negative by $314,212. That's primarily because there's a difference in revenue from last year to this year. Two big things that we can talk about, as I said, in greater detail. We had a pretty significant advance that was done at the end of the year and some substantial transfers that are not contemplated in this year's budget. So the expenses going out for the general fund were a little bit higher for those reasons. The projected revenue for all funds is $22,817,270. Last year it was $23,053,955. So again, that difference made up primarily because some of the transfers. And on an all funds basis, we had a huge Cleveland water project that we were reimbursed for during the year. It was about $560,000. We don't have any of those projects set up for this year in the budget. So that cash that normally would have been expected to come in consistent with last year is not included in the projections.
Okay, thank you. Based on what Mr. Kennedy said and the poll that was sent out today, I would make a motion to table ordinance 2024-03. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any comments? Yeah, Mr. King.
Vice Mayor, would we instead refer it to the Finance Committee?
Yes, we can table and refer it to the Finance Committee, correct? Thank you.
I mean, it's tomato. Yeah.
It's first reading and referrals.
Well, if it was on first reading, though, it would stay on the agenda and then table it on the next, if we're not ready. So we can just, it's on first reading, we don't have to really do anything.
Good job.
Okay, if you want to table it, then there's no problem with that, and then they will refer it to a committee, and it'll come back on when the committee has done its work, provided that the committee completes its work before the last meeting in March, because it does have to be approved in March.
So I'm actually going to withdraw my motion. I think if it's on first reading, it's going to just cover it. It's a new committee action. Okay, are there any comments? Great. We are on letter G, which is the authorization to renew. Well, I went through the motion that's on first reading. Okay, the authorization to renew 2024 UHPD Lexipol subscription services in the total amount of $17,026.10. This was discussed during the safety committee meeting. Ms. Marshall, did you want to say anything about this?
No, we did discuss it during the safety meeting, and I actually would make a move to approve.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. King. Any comments? Okay, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Tootie?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved.
Did Mr. Cooney get called?
Yes.
Reluctantly, I was called.
Ooh.
Okay,
We still love you, Chris.
letter H, a motion authorizing to renew the 2024 UHPD TAC computer software services in the total amount of $18,645.42. Again, Ms. Marshall.
Yeah, so again, I would motion to approve. It was discussed in the safety meeting tonight as well.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Weiser. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Thank you for recognizing me. Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, letter I, this is in regards to the fire Lexipol motion subscription renewal service in the amount of $10,773.54. Ms. Marshall?
Yes, again, we did discuss it in the safety meeting today, and I'll move to approve it.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any comments? Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, letter J, is there a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing legal, personnel, or real estate matters? Mr. Furcado? So I know that Mr. Cooney
I
wanted to.
do have a question I'd like to ask in executive session.
Is it legal or real estate
It's
matters?
legal or for legal and real estate matters, yes.
And
It will be very brief. I don't anticipate.
I'd like a follow-up to see where we stand on the Shaw settlement.
So that would be, I guess we would ask, is there a motion for executive session to discuss pending litigation and real estate matters?
So move.
Second.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
I don't believe there'll be any voting after executive session, but we can discuss reports of standing committees right now. Built-in housing.
There is a doodle out for, hopefully everybody can make the Building and Housing Committee meeting. We normally meet before the second council meeting. This time it'd be on Tuesday the 20th. So please respond to the doodle. We have a number of items on the agenda that we need to get to. We need to review the flow charts from Housing and Community Development. We need to continue the discussion about getting one safe bill contract. There are some point of sale questions, sidewalks we need to talk about again, and also rentals. So my suspicion is we're not going to get everything done in one meeting, so there'll probably be another doodle for another meeting to go along with all the Finance Committee meetings.
Thank you. Community outreach.
No report, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Economic development.
No report.
So there is a finance committee, hopefully within the next 2 weeks, if everybody, including directors and the mayor, can answer that as soon as possible. Thank you. Recreation.
No report, Mayor. Vice Mayor.
Safety.
No report, Vice Mayor.
Service and utilities.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, we have a Service and Utilities Committee meeting to discuss the SES Engineers Recycling Feasibility Study, observations and recycling recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee of the Whole, there is a Committee of the Whole meeting tomorrow to discuss law director resumes, and there is another one, I believe it's February 21st, that should be on our calendars also to hopefully start the review process. Okay, are there any reports of special committees and taking of action thereon? Unfinished and miscellaneous business? Okay, is there a motion to enter executive session? Okay. People are welcome to stay, but I don't